Welcome to Mental Health and You. This podcast brings you the best information and advice from across the Norfolk and Suffolk Foundation Trust. Every fortnight we will hear from one of our specialist areas, be it school and parent support, the Recovery College, wellbeing or research.
Hi and welcome to the Peer Support Podcast. Today's podcast is all about being active and how it can support your mental health, and it's presented to you by Rachel, that's me, hello, Holly,
that's me, hello everyone,
and Tim.
Hi, that's me.
And we are peer support workers who work within the Wellbeing Service. So today's podcast will cover what are peer support workers, being active and our mental health, and sharing peer support workers' lived experiences of being active to support their mental health. We hope that you come away from today's podcast with an understanding of how being active can support your mental health. So just to give you a quick introduction to peer support work and what peer support workers do. So the peer support workers within the Wellbeing Service all have their own experience of living with mental health challenges, and we share our experience of this with others, along with our recovery stories to offer hope. We use our experience of recovery to help people to make sense of what they're going through and to explore what may support them in their own recovery. So like I said, today's podcast is all about being active and how that can support us with our mental health. And Holly and Tim, I'm going to be really honest and say to you, I struggle with being active. It's one of the things in my recovery that I do find quite difficult. So I'm really interested in today's podcast to find out, what the peer support workers are saying and what you guys are saying. So we asked our peer support workers within the service, why do they keep active for their mental health? What kind of benefits do they find? Holly, would you be able to share those with us?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few examples here from our peer support workers. So to start off with, someone has said, if I don't keep active, I notice my mood drops and I'm have less motivation. Someone else has said, doing regular exercise gives a sense of achievement, and even when I lack motivation to get going. Someone else has said that weight gain can make them feel low. Another one of our peer support workers said, I feel sluggish if I don't keep active. I can definitely relate to that one. Another example here is mood booster. Getting out supports their mental health. And also, one of our peer support workers has said it's the social aspects of being active, which I think is a really good point, because quite often when we're being active and exercising, there's often a social aspect there as well, which I think can be quite important to people.
And I think also it's probably one of those things, Holly, that has been quite hard over the past year. If, going out and being active and the social aspects, makes you feel kind of better, makes you feel good. Actually,
Absolutely.
How we've had to sort of change over the past year and sort of manage those things and keep ourselves active and keep ourselves well as well. And Tim, is there anything that you wanted to add in terms of keeping active yourself for your own mental health?
Yeah, for sure. I find it difficult to stay active. I know it's something that I need to do. And actually, I've tried to shift my perspective away from a thing that I need to do and more of a thing that I want to do. So I want to go walking because I can go to nice places. I can go down and see a duck pond, or I can, I can make it a thing. It doesn't have to be walking for the sake of walking. It can be a thing for me. And I know that by the time I get back, I will feel different to than when I started.
Yeah, like you say, it's that mood booster. So perhaps we're feeling in a bit of a low way, or a bit of a not so energetic kind of way, perhaps when we head out. But when we manage to do that, so whatever we're going out to do, whether it is, like you say, going for a walk or going for a run, or as we're now sort of opening things up, able to go to classes and stuff like that. And when you come back and you've got that, I felt like this when I went out, but actually coming back in, I've gone for a bit of a walk, bit of exercise. When I come back, I actually feel a little bit better. I've had that mood boost, and and also, like somebody else said, having that sense of achievement. You might lack the motivation to get going, but when you've got going, actually you've gone out and done something, and the sense of achievement afterwards. And we also asked our peer support workers, how do they do that? So how do they keep active for their mental health? And guys, I'm really interested to hear this bit because, like I've just said, being active it's not something that comes naturally to me. So I'm going to see if there's any kind of ideas I can pick up from what the guys have suggested. So Holly, would you sort of start us off?
Yeah, I can certainly relate to what you're saying there, Rachel, myself. So yes, great examples here actually from our peer support workers. So someone said try to walk 10,000 steps every day. We've got walking as an example, which I think is a great one. Walking is a great example of staying active. Another very, I think for me particularly, one that I can relate to quite strongly is sing and dance around the kitchen to music. I think that's a great one. Another one we've got is gardening. I know something that myself and Rachel have been trying to do recently.
We need to catch up, Holly, and find out whether we've kept our gardens alive.
We do, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Another great example here is things like yoga and Pilates, swimming as well. Someone has said a quick spin around the block at lunchtime, a walk around the village after work. Another good example is housework. Of course, we've got the gym. Another very important one, I think, movement breaks. So working at a computer screen all day. So I think we can all appreciate, how important it is to get up from our seats and away from the screen for a few minutes regularly. And another really good example, one that's been used quite a lot throughout the last year and a bit, is online exercise videos as well.
Yeah, like you say, there's a wide kind of choice there, isn't there? I mean, yeah. When I'm able to try and be a bit more active, I like walking, and one of the reasons I like walking is that it's something that you can organise quickly. You don't actually need a lot of equipment or any of equipment, and it's free. I think for one of those things for me where I don't have to think, right, I've got to get in the car, I've got to go here, there and everywhere, because then I'll just go, well, that's just another reason not to do it. And, whereas if it's find a pair of socks, find a pair of shoes, is it raining, do I need a coat? No, out I go. Actually, that's really quite a nice one. And oh yes, singing and dancing around the kitchen.
Great one.
Oh yeah. Yes, I mean, one of the many joys of working from home is that if I'm just sort of doing some admin stuff, I will have some sort of music on, and when you hear a good tune, and you just think, oh
yes.
Nobody can see me, although I am declaring this to our podcast listeners out there. Having that little dance, or that little dance on your chair for a couple of seconds, where you just go, oh yeah, I remember this is good tune, is actually really uplifting.
It is. It does make all the difference, doesn't it?
It does. And Tim, are there any sort of these things on this list here that you've done to keep active for your mental health, or sort of use?
For sure, walking definitely. I always try to give myself a place to go because I find it difficult to walk for the sake of walking. So I try to give myself a place to go, and 10,000 steps can seem like a big number when I'm not feeling well. So I try not to beat myself up if I don't necessarily hit 10,000 steps, because even one step's better than 0 steps. So I always try to be kind to myself in that way, that anything I do is more than nothing. Singing and dancing, yeah, do you know what? I do a lot of that too in the around the house.
We should start a group. I'm kind of feeling
we really should.
There needs to be a little band or something that we do. But...
I'm so there for it.
But yeah, it's like you say. It's I find it too difficult to walk for the sake of it. I know it's that magic word should. I should do it, but for me, it's that purpose of doing it. And since our lives have changed in lockdown, all that incidental exercise that I used to get, so going into the town, or parking my car at a car park and going to meet somebody at a venue. I'm not doing those things anymore because, you know, they've been kind of removed. And yeah, sort of like the thing about housework, I don't know about you guys, not my favourite thing in the world to do.
No, not at all.
No, but again, actually, you can get a lot of activity from it. And what I try to do is then pair it with something that I do enjoy doing. So, you know, when you've got that washing up pile, and the washing up fairies still haven't come round and done it. You know, it's really annoying. And I'm
still waiting for them.
I know, they will come at some point, I'm sure. But for me, it's like, okay, I'm going to bung some 80s tunes on. That motivates me to then get on with it because I'm doing something that I want to do along with something that perhaps necessarily I don't. And you kind of find yourself dancing, well, I do, at the sink, and just kind of just enjoying it, and like we said previously, having that mood boost, which is actually really important if you're not having a day that kind of feels great. And Tim, I think your point that you made about sort of self-compassion in terms of, okay, I've not done those 10,000 steps today, I'm not going to beat myself up for that because actually what I did was a little bit of movement, or, you know, I looked after myself that day. And like you said, taking a couple of steps is better than none. So, yeah, I think that kind of comes into that all as well. And kind of links into our next bit. So we were asking our peer support workers, you know, in terms of being active and how that supports your mental health, are there any challenges? And if there were challenges, how did you overcome them? And I think a big one, which I think we've touched on, is motivation. So if we really are not having a day where getting ourselves going is working, you know, how do we manage that? And actually our motivation can be affected by external barriers. So the guys were saying if the weather was bad, you know, it's hard to be motivated when it's raining. Interestingly, for me, in our current hot spell that we're having as we record this podcast, for me it's actually the opposite. It's the hot weather. So I don't know about you guys, but I can feel incredibly tired when it's hot. I struggle with hay fever and asthma, so, you know, I kind of don't have those feelings of, yay, it's summer. You know, I find it a little bit trickier. And actually when it's really hot, I find it quite hard. I mean, Tim, is that something that you've got experience of sort of too?
I really, really do. I spent some time in France while I was unwell. I spent some time in France while I was unwell. And it's pretty hot there. Pretty much didn't go out between 12 and 2 any day because it was just too hot in the summer. And it sort of taught me to adjust myself for the weather, essentially. I tended to go out more in the evening until sort of 8, 9 o'clock when it was much cooler. And actually, there's things I can give myself things to look forward to there, like the sunset. It's going to have some magical colours.
Yeah, and like you say, it is kind of looking at, you know, okay, maybe the weather's bad, or like for us, oh, it's too hot. You know, we can have that instant feeling of, right, I'm not going to do anything, it's all been ruined. But actually, when you say, well, I'm going to go out a bit later. I mean, I've sort of started going for a walk at about sort of 7 o'clock in the evening. I mean, some days I manage it. I must admit, I manage it better on a weekend as opposed to a weekday. But yeah, going out when it's a bit cooler, a bit sort of calmer, there's sort of less people about. And the guys were saying if that weather is bad, you know, if it is raining cats and dogs and you don't really want to go out, they were saying that if you try and do more inside, so walking up and down the stairs several times if you live in a house, or taking items back to the fridge one at a time, you know, making those things kind of last longer. I thought it was an interesting idea. And also our motivation can disappear when we're exercising on our own, and it can be easy to put off. And I think perhaps this is something people have struggled with over lockdown, where you can't go and have that social aspect because you can't go to the gym and you can't, you know, be with a certain amount of people. So, you know, if you're doing it by yourself, actually it's easy to put off, isn't it? If you're only letting yourself, you know, letting yourself not do it. But actually, people have said, well, if I say to somebody, oh, I'm going for a walk today, I'm more likely to do it, kind of having that deal. And also, you know, if you can't go to your classes actually what can you do? So could it be that you do, if you've been going to yoga classes, you do yoga for 15 to 20 minutes instead of thinking, I must do a whole hour because that's what I was doing. And again, Tim, it goes back to that self-compassion in terms of, I can't do this for whatever reason is coming in, but I'm going to be kind to myself and I'm going to do something a little bit sort of different as well. And I think another difficulty can be time. In terms of, where do I fit that in my day? I can't fit it in, or I can't see where it'll fit. And, people were saying actually finding quick exercises or doing exercise when we're waiting. So I've watched something where, you're boiling the kettle. So whilst you're boiling the kettle, why don't you do some squats or some lunges or some stretches and kind of sort of putting things together. And I don't know if you guys felt this one as well, but in terms of mood, so if you're feeling good, people were saying, oh yeah, I'll head out, I'll go to the gym, I'll do a workout, I'll do a run, I'll do a class. But if we're feeling what do you do instead? So they were suggesting maybe doing a bit of gardening or sort of go for a short walk. I mean, Holly, you kind of suggested sort of there that you found that. Is that your experience then?
Yeah, I mean, mood plays a massive part in this, doesn't it? I think, and it can be potentially a big barrier. I try to, when I'm struggling, like for example, I always remember going back to the walking thing. When I was really struggling with my mental health, there'd be days when I'd just stay in bed all day, and my mum would call me on the phone. She would say something like, just go for a walk, get up and go for a walk. And I would be like, but why? I needed a reason, I suppose, the motivation, like we've been saying, to go for that walk. So when I know I need to go for a walk to keep myself active now, what I do is to lift my mood and to make myself want to do that. I tend to walk to a cafe, then get myself a takeaway coffee and walk back again. So that way, it doesn't feel like such a struggle. And knowing that I'm getting that reward at the end of it kind of lifts my mood.
Yeah, it was like Tim sort of said, in terms of having that purpose.
Yes.
For going somewhere, and if we haven't got the motivation to do something for the sake of doing it, actually, can we find a reason? We're going out to get that coffee, and reward myself with it when I come back. And particularly for me, a difficulty can be boredom. I'm walking the same old route. I'm seeing the same old things. And I struggled with this in the first lockdown because it's like, right, okay, we're being told to go out for exercise. I must go out for exercise. And actually, I found it so difficult because I wouldn't enjoy it. I'd get bored. And then the guys were saying, well, actually, can you listen to music whilst you're exercising? Or, if you're going out for a walk, speaking to someone on the phone whilst walking, a variety of perhaps different routes or activities to do. And I think also if we're struggling with long-term conditions as well, what can we do with the limits of what we're able to do with those? And I think possibly another difficulty sort of coming up in lockdown where people have been furloughed or if they've had the misfortune to be made redundant is the finances of it.
Yes.
When the gyms were closed, did you really want to be paying for your gym membership? Or, now they've reopened, can you afford to pay for that as well? And like I said, with walking, what I like about it is that it's free, regardless of how my finances are doing. I've got a pair of shoes and I can go out and go for a walk when I want to, when I choose to, when it kind of works for me.
Absolutely. I think, again, finance can seem like a massive barrier, can't it? But there are quite a lot of options out there being active and exercising that are free. I think it's quite often about doing a bit of research and, again, I suppose adapting as well, thinking about what we can do with what we've got.
Yeah, it's that strength focus, isn't it? It's looking at, okay, I might want to do this and I can't, and I could be focused on all the things that I can't do. But if I can focus on the things that I can, so I've got some CDs, well, I could do some dancing in my living room, or, we've got access to the internet. I could look at some of the free content that is out there and sort of try different things, and kind of just thinking around, the barriers that can come. And I think another barrier really can be tiredness, can't it? I mean, Tim, you and I have just sort of talked about how we struggle in the hot weather. Are you the same as me in that this kind of weather just makes me feel really tired?
Yeah, it saps your energy, doesn't it? Or it can feel like as the sun gets higher, I feel like I can get lower.
Yes. No, I hadn't thought. Yes, that's a brilliant way to link the two. Yes, I feel the same.
I think I've kind of, like I said, I live in France, so there's a couple of things I've learned from it. I keep my curtains and windows closed throughout the day, drinking plenty of water, and and those things can help. But also just accept that it can be a bit of a challenge sometimes with the bad weather.
Yeah, and whether it's yes, but it's our perspective, isn't it? And I think for you and Tim, the summer for me is bad weather. Yeah. Whereas there'd be people, listening to this going, I don't know what those two were talking about, because actually.
Absolutely, I'm the complete opposite to you two, but I think, and I love it when it's summer. I feel much better in myself, but I think that just highlights that we're all very different and individual, and we need it is about finding what works for us individually.
Yes, exactly. Like, I'm sure that, when I'm going, oh, it's hot, I don't like it, there's other people going, actually, I love it. This is what I thrive for. And, I can't wait for this time of year. And like you said, Holly, we're all wonderfully unique individuals. So it's finding what works for us. So, for me, I get tired in the hot weather, but other peer support workers we were talking about were saying that actually the bad weather, so rain and snow and cold weather, can make them feel tired as well. But also if you've got low mood, so, if I'm experiencing a hot day and my mood is not great, I loved what you said there, Tim, the sun gets higher and you get lower, that really, really resonates with me. And it can then have such an impact where you're like, oh, don't really like that. Whereas those other days where you're like, okay, it's really hot, I don't enjoy this, but I'm feeling okay, I can manage it. And, the guys were saying, if the weather doesn't suit you, do something indoors. What is it that you can do that is active when you're indoors? Like the guys were saying, going up and down the stairs, bit of housework. But they were saying that if they're tired due to their low mood, it's actually harder, because it's like it's like walking through treacle, isn't it? It's like, one foot in front of the other is just too much. And like Tim sort of previously said, we can start beating ourselves up and not have that self-compassion. So, they were saying that actually they check in with themselves. Have I done too much? Am I tired because of that? Do I need a rest day? That's absolutely fine if I do. And sort of doing stuff like, actually, if I'm having a day on a sofa, they were saying, if I'm watching DVDs, leave the remote with the telly and just select one episode. So then if you want to watch the next episode, you've got to get off the sofa.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant tip.
Yeah, and I think it's also finding, the small things. Like I started off by going, I find Be Active very difficult. I'm wondering actually if I do. It's actually, I'm probably managing to be active, but in different ways. So not with that organised activity, because I think I do struggle with that. And you guys listening this afternoon can't see, but Tim and Holly can see that I cannot sit still when I talk. My hands are flying about everywhere. I've probably got so much exercise in my shoulders just from doing this podcast today. But yeah, it is finding those little things, isn't it? I mean, last night I was watching a bit of Doctor Who, and I thought, right, I've been watching this for half an hour. We're going to press pause. I'm going to pop outside and do a little bit of that weeding that I need to do in the garden, because I hadn't managed to do it when I planned. And you thought, do that for a bit, come back in, watch a bit more, do it again. It's kind of working with how you're doing, the resources that you've got available, and what kind of feels right. And I think also, if we're having difficulty with sleeping, I don't know about you guys, that can affect my motivation to do anything, let alone sort of being active. And again, the guys were suggesting, trying to go do a little bit, walking to the local shop just to get moving, as it gets you moving, which therefore makes you feel a little bit better, and it kind of carries on. And Holly, is there anything that you sort of wanted to add to all of this?
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, the first thing with tiredness is something I can very much relate to. It's something that I experienced, quite extreme tiredness on a daily basis. And I think sometimes figuring out the right time for you can help. But no, for me, I naturally have a dip around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then don't start to feel better until around 4 o'clock. So, I'm more likely to feel more active and upbeat out of those hours. So I think for me, knowing that, I can then adapt things around that and try to perhaps be a bit more active and exercise before or after those times. So I think it's that self-awareness and knowing how you work, how your body works.
Yeah, and like you said, when Tim and I are going, no, the summer is bad weather, it's actually understanding that we are very different and very unique, and going with our strengths, So I know what you mean about that dip between sort of 2 and 4. I mean, mine tends to be sort of after lunch. It's like I go into some kind of food coma, and I just want to go and have a nap. I know that I can't in a working week. That's not going to work. But also, I know that first thing in the morning, that's not a good time either. So it's kind of finding, so like I said, for me, sort of 7 o'clock in the evening, in particularly in this time of weather, time of year, that kind of works for me to go and, maybe it's a walk, maybe it's a bit of tidying up in the garden, and maybe it's a bit of housework, who knows. But also I know I speak to people who first thing in the morning, they've got that burst of energy. So actually, I will go for that walk, I will go for that gym session and things like that. And Tim, is there anything that you wanted to sort of to add to all of that?
Yeah, I do quite a bit of archery. It's like, I don't know, it's my thing. And it's something, I guess, in terms of what motivates us. If I can find something I'm interested in, something that can be a mindful activity where I can just focus in on something very specific. I mean, archery, you're focusing on being accurate. And it can be a very mindful experience. But again, the hot weather, I basically won't shoot during the week, and it'll be in the evenings on the weekend. And then my activity will come from things during the day. Like I tend to get my neighbours' bins in on bin day. I don't know how they feel about that, but I do it anyway. But it's just, an extra 4 or 5 trips back and forth to where the bins are kept. And it's finding those adjustments for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's those little things that, and like I said at the start, I said, be active, no difficulty. But actually listening to you guys, it is those things that we're doing throughout the day that perhaps we don't realise. So my inability to talk without moving my hands, that's a lot of stretchy kind of stuff that I'm doing there. The times where I get up from the computer deliberately to have that screen break because, we need to. And I think what I've got from this is it's finding what works for you in terms of the activity that you enjoy doing, the time of day that it works for you, fitting it into your lifestyle, and, try and get best with it. And for those days where, things come along, whether that's how we're feeling, how we're doing, finances, weather, all of those things that can come along and, spoil plans as such. It's then, like we've said, it's kind of going, well, what's another thing that I could do that could get me some activity in my life that isn't quite what I wanted to do, or, just having that adaptability to
Absolutely. Do. And I think we've all become experts in adapting over the last year and a bit.
Yeah, I think we have, and it's, I think we also have to congratulate ourselves for all those adaptations that we've had to do and continue to do. So thank you guys. Absolutely fantastic to have a chat about all of this afternoon. So that's really great. So just to kind of bring everything together. So today's podcast has shared peer support worker lived experience examples of being active to support their mental health. Our next podcast will be looking at sleep and our mental health. So if you're listening to this podcast and would think that actually referring yourself to the Wellbeing Service would be useful, it's really simple. You can do so via our website, and you can also do so over the telephone. If you're currently having treatment within the Wellbeing Service and would like to have peer support, then please do speak to your therapist who can make the referral for you. I'd just like to say a really big thank you to Holly and Tim for their time in today's podcast. Like I say, really interesting to find out how we're all managing to get a little bit of activity in our lives and looking after our mental health at the same time. And thank you for our podcast listeners for tuning in today. It's much appreciated. So I'll say goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me, and thank you all so much for listening.
That's goodbye from me, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please do subscribe. It's free and means the podcast will automatically download every fortnight. Do rate and review Mental Health and You, and follow our social media accounts that are all in the show notes. And more than anything, look after yourself.